A quiet private jet sits on a dim runway in Florida. Inside, John Travolta sits looking at old family photos before stepping back into the spotlight. At 72, the icon who redefined Hollywood carries a profound quiet sadness, having endured losses that changed his life forever. How did he survive the darkest chapters? 3 minutes ago. What happened to John Travolta at 72? Try not to cry when you see this. Long before the world knew his name, John Travolta was just a kid growing up in Englewood, New Jersey. The youngest of 6 children in a lively, artistic family, he was raised by a mother who taught drama and a father who owned a tire shop. From an early age, John was fascinated by performance, dance, and airplanes. He dropped out of high school at 17 to pursue acting full-time in New York City, taking small theater roles and commercial gigs to make ends meet. His breakthrough came when he landed the role of Vinnie Barbarino in the 1975 television sitcom Welcome Back, Kotter. His effortless charm and natural comedic timing made him an instant fan favorite across America. By 1977, director John Badham cast him as Tony Manero in Saturday Night Fever. Travolta spent 9 grueling months practicing his dance routines for the film. When the movie hit theaters, it did not just break box office records, it created a global cultural phenomenon. The white suit, the soundtrack by the Bee Gees, and the iconic solo dance sequence solidified him as a superstar. He followed this success immediately with the 1978 movie musical Grease, playing Danny Zuko alongside Olivia Newton-John. Grease became the highest-grossing musical film of the century, establishing Travolta as one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. Yet, beneath the glittering surface of sudden Hollywood royalty, John was privately suffering from a heartbreaking loss. In 1976, while filming the television movie The Boy in the Plastic Bubble, he fell deeply in love with actress Diana Hyland. She was 18 years older than him, but their connection was immediate and genuine. Tragically, just as Travolta's career was exploding, Hyland was diagnosed with breast cancer. She passed away in March 1977, holding his hand in her final moments. Devastated, Travolta went straight from her funeral to the set of Saturday Night Fever. He channeled his profound grief into his performance, using the intensity of his dance to process an overwhelming pain that the public knew very little about. When you reflect on those early years, which of John Travolta's classic films meant the most to you growing up, and why did his performance stay with you for so long? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below, as hearing your stories helps keep these memories alive. But as the 1970s faded, no one could have predicted how quickly Hollywood would turn its back on its biggest star. What happens when the world stops clapping? As the 1980s arrived, the high-flying momentum of John Travolta's early career began to slow down dramatically. A series of critical and commercial missteps, including Two of a Kind and Perfect, cooled studio interest in him. Hollywood is notoriously unforgiving when a bankable actor suddenly loses box office draw. Industry insiders openly questioned whether Travolta was merely a product of the 1970s disco era who could not adapt to a changing cinematic landscape. Roles that were once offered to him automatically began going to newer stars, and for nearly a decade, his phone rarely rang with major offers. During these quiet years, Travolta did not fall into bitterness. Instead, he channeled his energy into his lifelong passion for aviation. Having earned his private pilot license at age 22, he spent hundreds of hours in the sky, flying multi-engine aircraft and finding solitude away from the relentless pressure of public scrutiny. Flying provided him with a sense of perspective that Hollywood could never offer. He quietly settled down, marrying actress Kelly Preston in 1991. The couple welcomed their first child, a son named Jett, in 1992. Away from the spotlight, Travolta found a peaceful life centered around his growing family and his love of flight. Then came 1994, bringing one of the most remarkable career revivals in cinema history. A young, rising director named Quentin Tarantino had written a script titled Pulp Fiction. Tarantino insisted on casting Travolta as Vincent Vega, a washed-up, soulful hitman. Miramax studio executives initially resisted the choice, preferring more current box office stars, but Tarantino refused to make the film without Travolta. When Pulp Fiction premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, it won the Palme d'Or and went on to become a massive cultural reset. Travolta's cool, measured performance earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor and restored his status as an A-list titan overnight. Following Pulp Fiction, Travolta entered a vibrant new phase of his career. He starred in a series of major critical and box office hits, including Get Shorty, Broken Arrow, and the sci-fi action masterpiece Face/Off opposite Nicolas Cage. Directors praised his professional work ethic and down-to-earth kindness on set. By the early 2000s, Travolta had successfully rebuilt his career on his own terms, earning millions while keeping his family close. He had proven his critics wrong and secured his place among film history's resilient legends. Yet, just as his professional and personal life reached stability, an unexpected shadow was waiting. What was the quiet warning sign before tragedy struck? By the late 2000s, John Travolta and Kelly Preston had built a life centered around love, mutual respect, and family. Their eldest son, Jett, was the center of their world, though he faced significant health challenges from an early age. Jett had been diagnosed with Kawasaki disease as a toddler, a condition that causes inflammation in blood vessels, and he subsequently developed a history of severe seizures and autism. The family spent years managing his care quietly, prioritizing his comfort and safety above everything else, away from intrusive media outlets. In January 2009, the Travolta family traveled to their vacation home at the Old Bahama Bay Hotel in the Bahamas to celebrate the new year. On the morning of January 2, tragedy struck without warning. 16-year-old Jett suffered a fatal seizure in the bathroom of their vacation suite. Despite immediate emergency medical efforts, he could not be revived. The news rocked the global entertainment community, but for John Travolta, it was a cataclysmic shock. In subsequent interviews, Travolta described Jett's passing as the single worst thing that had ever happened to him, admitting that for a long time, he was not sure he wanted to wake up in the morning. If you are finding value in this look back at John Travolta's life and want to support our effort to share honest, respectful stories about legendary figures, please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Your support truly helps us keep telling these meaningful human stories. The years following Jett's passing required absolute emotional endurance. Travolta stepped away from the film industry completely, spending months in isolation with Kelly and their daughter, Ella Bleu. He later credited his personal support system and the birth of his second son, Benjamin, in November 2010, with helping the family rebuild a sense of purpose. Benjamin brought a renewed light into a home that had been heavy with grief. Slowly, Travolta returned to acting, choosing projects carefully while staying close to his children. However, the family's resilience was tested once again in 2018 when Kelly Preston was diagnosed with breast cancer. True to her quiet nature, Kelly chose to keep her 2-year medical battle entirely private, surrounded only by immediate family and close friends. She underwent treatments while John stepped back from major film commitments to remain by her side as her primary caregiver. On July 12, 2020, Kelly Preston passed away at the age of 57. Travolta announced her passing in a moving statement, expressing gratitude to the doctors and medical personnel who had cared for her. He had lost his first love in his 20s, his teenage son in his 50s, and now his partner of nearly 30 years. How does a man find the strength to move forward after losing so much? In the wake of Kelly Preston's passing, John Travolta made a deliberate choice about how he would live the rest of his life. Recognizing that his remaining children, Ella Bleu and Benjamin, needed stability more than ever, he prioritized his role as a father above all professional ambitions. He stepped back from demanding film schedules, choosing instead to create a warm, supportive home environment in Florida. Friends and longtime associates noted that Travolta transformed his personal routines to ensure he was fully present for every milestone, conversation, and quiet moment with his kids. Many of us have faced profound grief, losing the people who anchored our lives and wondering how to step into an uncertain tomorrow. Seeing someone like John Travolta navigate deep loss with grace reminds us of our own strength during difficult seasons, proving that love survives even the hardest heartbreaks. Rather than letting sorrow define their home, Travolta encouraged his children to pursue their individual passions with confidence. He took on the role of dynamic mentor for his daughter Ella, who decided to follow in her parents' footsteps by pursuing acting and a music career. When Ella released her debut singles and landed film roles, Travolta was her biggest advocate, sharing her accomplishments on social media with unreserved fatherly pride. Simultaneously, he made sure young Benjamin was surrounded by security and joy, spending quality time together flying, attending sporting events, and traveling. Travolta also maintained a commitment to honoring the memories of Jett and Kelly through quiet philanthropy. The Jett Travolta Foundation, which he established shortly after his son's passing, continued to provide resources, funding, and assistance to children with special needs and medical challenges. By channeling his personal pain into helping other families, Travolta ensured that his son's impact would continue to be felt far beyond their own lives. Through these actions, he demonstrated that living with dignity is the highest tribute one can pay to loved ones lost. As the years advanced, Travolta maintained a balanced presence in public life, appearing at major cinema celebrations while protecting his family's privacy. His public appearances were marked by an authentic warmth and deep gratitude toward the fans who had supported him across 6 decades. He showed the world that while grief never entirely disappears, it can coexist with love, strength, and real joy. But what does life look like for the iconic actor today as he reaches his 70s? At 72, John Travolta carries his age with quiet grace and enduring dignity. His public appearances today are far removed from the high-energy Hollywood circuit of his youth, reflecting instead a man who is at peace with his journey. Whether attending select international film festivals, participating in retrospectives honoring classics like Grease and Pulp Fiction, or visiting aviation expos, Travolta engages with the world with genuine warmth. He remains an active pilot, frequently flying his own aircraft and sharing his love for the skies with his family. His career remains an extraordinary study in longevity and adaptability. Spanning over 50 years, his filmography includes cultural monuments that defined multiple eras of American cinema. Cinema historians point out that very few actors have achieved major cultural breakthroughs in 3 separate decades, the 1970s with Saturday Night Fever, the 1990s with Pulp Fiction, and the 2000s with hits like Hairspray. Yet, when journalists ask him about his life today, Travolta consistently points toward his family rather than his cinematic achievements as his proudest legacy. His home in Florida remains a sanctuary filled with music, laughter, and aviation memorabilia. Those close to him describe a man who takes simple pleasure in everyday moments, watching his daughter perform, teaching his son new skills, and reflecting on a life lived fully despite immense trials. He has openly discussed how facing loss changed his perspective, teaching him to treasure every day and remain grateful for the connections that endure. When audiences look at John Travolta today, they see far more than a legendary actor who defined generations of film. They see a father who stood firm through life's darkest storms, a husband who honored his wife's quiet courage, and a human being who kept his heart open despite deep pain. His life story stands as a lasting reminder that true strength is not measured by freedom from hardship, but by the grace and courage with which we carry on. If you were moved by John Travolta's journey of quiet strength, be sure to watch our next story on the channel, where we explore the untold personal struggles and triumphant comeback of another legendary Hollywood icon.